Aloha. Hawaii Redistricting Online is an online application that will be used by the Hawaii Reapportionment Commission to redistrict the Hawaii seats, the congressional seats in the U.S. House, the Hawaii State Senate, and Hawaii State House districts. This set of tools and data are available for the Commission, members of the Advisory Council, members of the general public, a set of data and tools to draw redistricting plans. This video is intended for anyone wishing to use the application. It'll step through how to get a user account because it does require a login, how to then use plan templates and open a plan, how to use the map window and district windows, and the biggest one, how to assign census blocks to districts, because that's what redistricting is about, assigning census blocks to the different legislative districts. And then we'll also talk about sharing your plan, reviewing your plan. And if you like your plan and would like to submit it to the Commission for its consideration, we'll talk about how to submit your plan. So first, what does it look like when you come to the app? You will see a sign to sign in. If it's your first time, you'll need to create a new account. If you're returning, you can use that account information you've created to log in. But to get started, I'll show you how to create a new account. So you'll click here, create a new account, which will open up a window. I'm going to enlarge it so you can see it a little better and fill it in. So here you'll put in your name, email address. You'll create a username and a password. These are ones that you know that you make up. And then you'll click the create button. You'll see the OK if the account is successful. If someone else already has that username, you'll be prompted to change your username. But if everything goes fine, you'll see user account successfully created. You can click the OK button. At that point, the app will log you in. This is managed by Esri. The software, the online application software, was created by Esri, and the Office of Elections has supported the Commission here in this. And so when you're signing in to use the online application, you're actually signing in to this Office of Elections and Esri website. So you'll put in the username and password that you just created, and then click sign in. The first time you do this, you'll be prompted for a security question and answer. Just like in other online applications, there's a variety of choices for the security question. Choose the question of your choice and provide an answer. Once you've done that, go ahead, click the OK button. Once again, this is an application with Esri and Office of Elections, and it wants to make sure you're going to sign in to this application using your user account, and you click yes, allow. There's the usual agreements, licensing agreements. Read through the whole thing if you want. If you want to use the app, go down and click agree. And that opens the application, at which point you see a choice of template plans. At this point, we have two template plans to choose from. They're both for the congressional, a blank plan where none of the census blocks have been assigned to any census district, neither of the two Hawaii congressional districts. The second plan is the current plan. So we've taken the current district boundaries for districts 1 and 2 and assigned all census blocks to whatever their current boundary is. So that's the plan we're going to go ahead and open. That's the only two we have right now. But we do in the future, right now we anticipate September 10th, we should have then the template plans for the State Senate and State House by basic island unit. So similar to what you'll see today for the congressional, you'll be able to start, if you're interested more in doing State Senate on Maui, say, you could go in and choose one of those templates and start working on your own plan. And the difference between blank and current, a lot of times people have found in the past, and when I've worked with past commissions, that it's easier to start from the current districts and adjust them than to start from blank. But you have both choices and you can choose whichever you want. Also looking to the future, at some point, the commission will propose a set of plans that will go out for public hearing. At the time that happens, those proposed plans will also become available in Hawaii Redistricting Online. And there again, past experiences show this is where we get the most use of the online application. Once the commission has proposed a plan, members of the public go in and start with one of those proposed plans and then start suggesting other changes that they'd like to see the commission make. At any rate, right now there's only two to get started, congressional, and we're going to go ahead and use the current, because again, that's the one that I think most people find most useful, starting from the current district. So I'll select that template current and click the OK button. When I do that, then the application itself opens. We see a map, we see some district information down below. We see a set of tools. So there's different tabs as we go. This is the File tab with a set of tools on it. The one we'll use first is the Save As, when we want to take a plan and save it as our own. You also in the future might use Save as you're making changes. You'll want to save those changes. And you may also want to use Open. You may have multiple plans you're working with. You want to save one, open another. So this File tab is one you use for managing the plans that you have. There is a Learn tab with some help on how to use the application. Again, we've created this video for people in Hawaii, but Esri does have very extensive help online for all the different tools, and you'll have access to that from this Learn tab. The next tab is the View tab. So this is an important one because this is where you can configure what you're going to see in the map window, and also what you're going to see in the districts window. So we see right now our district boundary, CD1, Congressional District 1, is most of Southern Oahu. Congressional District 2 is the rest of Oahu and the other basic island units in Hawaii. The plan itself zooms into the area where there actually is a boundary where we might be making changes. Now, again, you can move to other areas and propose other changes, but the starting point, this is the current district boundary. And so one thing I find quite useful right away in this view window, I like to see my target, because this is based on the 2020 census information, the federal population base, the PL 94-171 data. And the ideal population would be if each of these two districts had 727,636 people. Using the 2020 data, in the total, it shows us how many are actually in each district. Again, based on that 2020, you can see how it has changed now. They've grown to where there's 2,000 additional people in Congressional District 1 and 2,000 fewer in Congressional District 2, meaning Congressional District 1 has grown slightly faster than Congressional District 2. So showing the target values is something I find handy to do. I like to see those down in the districts window. You don't have to do it, but it's something I find useful, so I pointed it out to you. The other one down in the districts window is to look at your total deviation, is the difference between the largest and the smallest. So here we see for the existing current district boundaries with the 2020 population, we have a total deviation of 0.6%, the difference between the highest and the lowest. Now, interestingly, that's lower than the 1% threshold that courts have upheld for a federal plan. So in theory, no changes need to be made, but in practice, generally, we try to get those as low as possible. And so that's what we're going to do in this exercise. I'm just going to try some things, try some census blocks, and I'm going to show you how the tools work to see if we can get that deviation down below 0.6%. Interesting to compare, this was the plan from 10 years ago, the congressional plan at that time, based on the population at that time. The ideal was 608,151, quite a bit below, right? Our new target is higher because we've had population growth, but they did get their planned deviation down to 0.1%. So ours is 0.6%. We're quite a ways above that. So let's see if we can get that down a little bit. And in doing so, I'll share with you some of the different tools available in Hawaii Redistricting Online. And that moves us to the Create tab. This is the main tab where we can change district assignments, move around on our map, do different things. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time here on the Create tab and the different tools on the Create tab. So first is the map window itself and a set of tools for managing the map window. There is a little hand there, that's the pan tool. So if you have that as your active tool, and you can see the little orange halo around it, little box around it shows that it's active, and you click and drag on your map, you can move the map around. So you want to see an area a little bit north or south, east, west, Malcolm Mackay, you can use that pan and drag your map to different areas. So that's a useful tool. Another one that's useful is this zoom tool. If I make that the active tool, I can go down on my map and click an area to zoom in to. So here you can see down in the map, I've drawn a little red box. I'm using this zoom tool to zoom in to that area I've identified in the red box because I'm looking at seeing if there's changes we can make in the Ko'olina area to just slightly change this boundary and bring our deviations down. So I go ahead and click that box and you can see it zooms my map window to the extent of that box. So now we can see more closely that boundary between CD1 and CD2. The other thing we see is now we can see the outlines of the block boundaries. I'm going to go back a minute. If you look in the tools in the red box up above, it says display level block. That means that those each of those polygons, those areas in light black, each of those is a census block. I'm going to go back one slide. When we were zoomed out, notice there weren't as many of those black areas, black polygons. That's because if we look up above at display level, there it was set to the block group. That's where the census has a hierarchy of census tracts, census block groups, and the most detailed, the level we need to work at, are the census blocks. So it will automatically change that as you zoom in and out so that you see the appropriate geography. But this is the geography census blocks that we need to look at when we're assigning blocks to districts. And that's what we're going to do next, because that's this whole set of redistricting tools. And I'm going to show you several of them. We mentioned that Congressional District 1 has about 2,000 more people than 2, which means we need to take some of these census blocks and assign them then to Census District 2 so we can get those populations nearer equal and bring down that total deviation. So you can see a whole set of tools there. First of all, under district, I've set it to Congressional 2, because any blocks that I identify, and I'll show you how to identify them in a moment, I want to make them part of CD2, Congressional District 2. So let's look at the first one. Oh, before we do, we should remember as we're redistricting, there are a whole set of redistricting guidelines that the commission will be following, and that members of the public, if they're creating plans, should also follow. Where practicable, we've talked about these in other presentations. Here's a quick summary, not only the total deviation, which is the main number we look at, but also compactness, that they're contiguous, and that they preserve socioeconomic communities. So with that, let's start assigning some census blocks. So the first tool I'm going to show you is just basically a click tool. You click on a block and it will change that block to the district that you've chosen. So I've chosen District 2 up above, Congressional 2. So on the map, I pointed an arrow. That's where I'm going to go click using this tool, and it'll just be a single click. We can see the color changes. So that census block has now been assigned to Congressional District 2. And if we look down below, we see the deviation percent. There was a small number of people in that census block that brought the population a little more into balance. Instead of 0.6, we've brought our total deviation down to 0.56. So that's one of the tools I want to kind of move across and show you some of the other ones. So I'm going to do this in pieces. The next tool, which is actually one that I use a lot, is the select by rectangle. So in this case, rather than just a single click, you're going to do a double click. And so the first click will be the upper corner of the rectangle. The second click will be the lower corner of the rectangle. So here I'm going to draw a rectangle using this as my active tool around this area, which will then identify all the census blocks that touch that rectangle and assign them to Congressional 2, since that's our district that we've chosen up above. So I'll go ahead and do that. Once again, we see the colors change. And down below, we see our deviation has gotten even better. Now the excess population in Congressional 1 is only 1,000 over the ideal. And that total deviation is down to 0.3%. So that's the rectangle tool. Let's continue looking at the tools. The next one over is select by polygon. So sometimes it's an irregular shape, not just a rectangle that you want to select all the blocks in there. So in this particular case, I'm going to draw a polygon. And this is where, again, I choose that as my tool. I click on each of the corners, each of the vertices of my polygon. And when I'm at the last one, I'm going to double click. And as soon as I double click, once again, I'll see the colors on the map change because those blocks are now assigned to CD2. And then we look down to the deviations and we look and we say, oh, that it's still 0.3, but look what happened. We actually took out too many. Now it's the opposite case. Before, Congressional 1 still had a surplus about 1,000 over. Now it's 1,000 below. So maybe that wasn't such a good idea. And that's where these tools are good, because you can try things. If it's not good, that is another button in here that's quite useful, because I'm seeing my deviations are going like this. Okay, maybe I better use, yes, indeed. There is an undo button. I click the undo button and it undoes that last change. You can keep on going back until you last save the plan and do undo and redo. I just did one undo, so now we're back to where there's still about 1,000 people in Congressional District 1, with about 1,000 over that ideal population. So I'm looking at the map here, and I can see on the map Coahuila, and it looks like we've kind of split it in two here. And again, that's one of our guidelines, is not to split communities in two. So I am going to use that rectangle tool. And I see where it says Coahuila Golf Club. I'm going to use the rectangle tool to grab a few more of those, but not that kind of separate area up above. And indeed, I see now whoa, that really made a difference. My total deviation is down to 0.08%. We only have, our District 1 is only 300 above that ideal population. This is looking pretty good, but it actually still looks like we've split that Coahuila community. So I'm going to show you one more tool here. And this is the line tool, or polyline tool. And here, similar to the polygon, rather than doing an entire polygon, we just do a line, but it can have multiple vertices. So I'll click at each one of the corners, each one of the vertices. And when I'm done, I'll double click. And as soon as I double click, I'll see those districts change. And now I have included all the census blocks that cover Coahuila. And look at that, my deviation is even better. Now we're down to just under 200 additional in Congressional District 1 and just 200 under, for a total deviation of 0.06%. That is pretty darn good. And in fact, if I go back compare, that's even lower than their final plan. So I like this, but I need to check some things, right? So, but before I do, I want to save this as my old plan, because right now I'm still working with that template plan that I started with, which I can't save changes to that, right? That's the template that everyone uses. So I need to use Save As. So I've gone back to the File tab, and I'm going to click Save As. I'm going to make this my own plan. So with Save As, I'm going to give it a name. I call it Congressional Coahuila to CD2. This congressional plan improves the total plan deviation to 0.06%. by moving blocks around Coahuila from CD1 to CD2. Okay, and then I click the OK button. And I see that I notice up on top, the name of the plan has changed. It is now my plan, Congressional Coahuila to CD2. And I can continue working on it if I want. But I might want to, before I do anything else, check the integrity, run some of these checks, like looking for deviation and other things. So I click in the review tab, I can click check integrity, It'll go through and do a number of checks for us, including a maximum deviation check and a bunch of others. If it does not pass some of them, you can click a details button or a zoom to button. But in this case, everything looks good. I'll just click the X and close that window. So it's passed those tests. I may want to still share it with some other people, get their feedback on it, but maybe I'm ready right now. I like my plan. I want to submit it to the commission for their consideration. And I'm going to move over to the submit tab, where there is really only one tool, one button, and that is the submit plan button. So before you click that, again, keep in mind these guidelines, the plan, the reapportionment, redistricting will follow these guidelines. The commission's plans will, and plans from the public should, wherever practicable, follow these same guidelines. And when we submit, in fact, those same integrity checks that we did before in the review tab, as soon as you say, I want to submit my plan, it'll run those same integrity checks. And if it does not pass one of them, you cannot yet submit the plan. You'll have to go back in and fix things using those tools that I showed you. But if everything passed, and we know it will because we already checked, then we go ahead and click the OK button to continue submitting our plan. So here it will ask, so it knows your name. You can change it if you want, but that's by default, put your username and user email. The plan name is the one you gave it. And this is an important part to fill in, explanation of the plan objectives. Why did you do this plan the way you did? And in this case, my objective to lower the total deviation by moving blocks from Coalina from CD1 to CD2, and we lowered it to 0.06%. This is very helpful as the commission is reviewing these plans submitted from the public. These explanations can really help as we're looking at those plans and comparing them with the commission's plans and other plans submitted by the public. So once you've filled in this information, you go ahead and click Submit Plan. At that point, it wants to make sure. So if you're sure you want to submit it, you're going to click OK, because once you submit it, it's locked in place, because the commission then will need to review it and start working on it, comparing it to other plans. So we can't have it changing during that process. So as soon as you click OK here, your plan is going to be locked, cannot be changed. And so I clicked OK. Now it tells me my plan's been submitted. If you want to continue making changes, use Save As to create a copy. So I'll go ahead and click OK, which takes me back to my map. So if I want to continue exploring and try to make something even better, which would probably be pretty hard, but you never know, then I would click Save As, and this would become, I give it a new name, and I could continue working with that plan. So that's a tour of the main tools you need to create a plan, review that plan, and if you want, submit it to the commission. There is one more tool that I do find handy, and that is back on the Create tab. There's a Basemap tool, and you can change the Basemap. There's a number of different Basemaps you can use. I find the imagery one, which I've chosen here, quite useful, particularly if I'm zoomed in and I'm looking at an area and I don't want to split a community, or I don't want a boundary going through a ridge line, or various different reasons I'm trying to follow the guidelines. Sometimes the imagery is quite helpful as you're trying to understand the geography of an area and draw appropriate boundaries. And so with that, I've shown you the basics of these tools for Hawaii Redistricting Online. How do you create your account, use plan templates, the map window, the districts window, the big one, assigning census blocks, and then sharing, reviewing, and submitting your plans. Enjoy. We look forward to seeing the plans that everyone comes up with. Mahalo.